morning, Bob.
Good. As well, actually, it's 4:30 here, so it's afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Sorry with all these times and Zoom being so
No,
convenient.
probably very early for you, or earlier anyway.
Yeah, not too bad though, not too bad. This project is quite a historical because, I mean, the story of Like Water for Chocolate has been around for a very long time. And I feel like in a way it's part of Mexican culture.
Yes, I know, because when you meet someone like Laura in her hometown, she's quite a presence there, and everybody knows her. She's so famous, and so with Chris and Joby, who wrote the music, and I flew to Mexico City to meet with her. Chris had already met with her, but Joby and I hadn't met her, and it was intense. It was amazing. She was incredible, and everything you'd expect her to be and more. Yeah. I had seen the film when it first came out here. In the 90s. It must have been the early 90s when I saw it. I can't remember now. But it was I saw it like one of the art house cinemas here in London, and it was so charming and moving and beautiful. And I loved it. And so when Chris said he wanted to make it into a ballet, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a trip. And it turned out to be an amazing trip. So, and I'm so excited about it coming to New York. It's a year since we premiered it here in London. So.
Oh, well, I got to see it here in LA, thanks to Inma.
Oh, you went down to see it in Costa Mesa?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I couldn't travel. I wasn't well enough to travel. I've had a bit of a year of ill health, but I'm fine now. But I was only allowed to travel in the past 2 months, and so it's amazing that I can get to. I haven't been in New York for 3 years, which is the longest time I've been away from New York, maybe in 30 years. Mm-hmm. I always get there a year at some point with work or something, But because of COVID and not being very well, I couldn't go anywhere. So it's going to be a very emotional reunion with both New York and the Lincoln Center, where I've done an awful lot of work, and at the Met. I mean, I've worked at the Met a couple of times. So yeah, it'll be I always think the Lincoln Center is my home from home in New York City. Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've taken so many projects. How do you start taking and working on a project like this?
Well, I start with a conversation with Chris. Usually, he usually has a sense of how he wants to structure the ballet, because and we had our first truly creative conversation in Mexico City. We used to get up early in the morning and have breakfast together, and we'd sit in the lovely garden there attached to the hotel, and Joby and Chris and I would just start throwing ideas out, and Chris by then had some sense of how he was going to shape the ballet and tell that story, because it's quite a complicated story, in terms of time and time moving and time travel, and when you don't have any words, you have to be able to express that on 3 levels: music, ballet, choreography, and the visuals. They're the 3 things you're dealing with, really, principally. So we just had to choose from that. It's a very rich cauldron and tapestry of culture and emotion, and but it's there are universal themes, even though it's Mexican. The themes of the piece are universal.
Mm-hmm.
So once Chris gives it a shape, and then that shape helps Joby to begin to compose the score, I come in and I start offering up ideas as how you might represent the various locations, and what the color palette is. That's always very important to me. And I start with the scenery, and then once I know what I'm doing with the set, then I begin to bring in the costumes, which are quite complicated here because you're over at different time. So it starts Edwardian and it ends up in the 1930s, Um, and there's lots of, yeah. And my job is to tell the audience who have probably, I can't assume that they've either read the book or seen the film. You know, I just assume no, they haven't. And so it's my job to offer up information and tell them where they are and what time it is and what year it is. And, you know, yeah.
One of my favorite dresses was the one, and one of my favorite scenes was the one where Gertrude's dress at the rebellious sister.
Oh, yes.
She's actually one of
Do
my
you like
favorite
that?
characters.
You've said that again?
Oh, she's like one of my favorite characters, and she's like the spotlight of one of my favorite scenes. So much going on. It was epic.
I know. I know. She has an amazing story. Her story is incredible. Yeah. 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 So, well, I was playing with lots of different things there, you know, the revolution and all of that, and you know, feeding that into her, all that historical thing coming in, and rebellion, and you know, she's fascinating. Yeah, yeah.
So how is it to put that scene together?
Which particular scene are you talking about? Sorry.
The main one where she's supposed to be in the film, she's naked, where she decides to just strip
Oh
off
yes,
and go take her freedom.
yes. When the toilet explodes in fire, and she goes into the shower. Yes, and
Mm-hmm. Comedic.
and it goes on fire because her passion is so intense. Well, obviously we couldn't do that, and obviously she had to be clothed in some way. So we came up with this fabric, which is like the color of her body, um, and but it's got a tiny little kind of sequin all over it. So it sort of glistens like almost like a magical sweat over her body, and then Chris had this idea of all these fantasy revolutionaries coming out from underneath the table and all over the place. And so yeah, we built our own sort of fantasy revolutionaries around her, and yeah, that began with yeah her taking all her clothes off, yeah, and then making up the horse out of all bits of metal and things like that.
Mhm.
And
So you've done theater.
yes,
What?
I began in theatre, and then I met Chris Wheeldon when he was a young dancer with New York City Ballet,
Mhm.
and I met him in about 1995, I think, in New York City, and he had seen a production I'd done at Lincoln Center of Carousel, the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, and he loved that, and that's when I met him. He looked about 15, but I think he was about 23 at the time,
Mhm.
and I did his first ballet, first ever ballet, which was 15 minutes long, which he made for a dancer here called Darcy Bustle, and so that began our career together. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I totally fallen in love with the ballet. I mean, it's all I kind of want to do now. Really, I think I've done enough plays to last me a lifetime, and opera. It's okay, but it's a bit too static for my liking. But the ballet, oh God, I love the ballet. I love the ballet. I love all ballet. I love particularly contemporary dance. I love, yeah.
So what was it like interacting and working with Laura? I know you said it was pleasant meeting her.
Yes, I mean we didn't actually show her any of the designs because we didn't have any designs when we met her. We'd just gone there to talk to her about the world of the book, and uh, and you know, we sat down to one of these amazing meals. I mean, there were about 15 courses. You know, it was like oh my God, because you know, I have a small appetite, and Chris has even less, being a dancer. So so all this food kept coming and coming and coming and coming and coming, and it was hilarious because it was like one of the scenes from the film, and you know, and she lives in this extraordinary house, which is like an Escher puzzle. There's staircases going off at all these different angles, and it goes up and it goes down, and it's covered in all these. Her life is in this house. So you're passing by photographs of her husband and the young man, and her life is, in Mexico City, and then she brings you out into this beautiful, beautiful Spanish courtyard with fountains and bougainvillea everywhere. And oh my God, it was a trip. It was just so incredible. And I just knew there was an infusion of the life force in Mexico City is something that I found really, extraordinary, and the color and the whole magical. There is something there in the earth. I don't know what it is. It must be to do with the ley lines or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you feel something really like elemental there, and it's in the art, and it's in the paintings, and it's in the sculpture, and it's in the architecture, and it's that heady mix of Catholicism and everything else that comes in, the superstition and the occult and everything else that comes in to mix it all up. Yeah, I'm Irish, so I get the Catholic thing, but I didn't have that quite that mix. I had a different kind of more dour kind of Catholicism, more Jesuitical. But there it's really mixed in with potions and magic and all sorts of incredible things, and those cultures, all the cultures that it's gone through over the ages, just incredible. So you go to the museums and suddenly you're confronted with incredible tribal art and stuff. It was really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Just full of stimulus, and including the cuisine, which of course is such a big part of the ballet. I said to Chris, how are you doing making ballet about cooking? But he did. And yeah, it's and then Joey did this extraordinarily beautiful score for it, which is so, it was very emotional for me to watch it, because I wasn't very well when they were putting it together on stage, and I could only watch 20 minutes of it. And so the first time because I wasn't so well, I was going through chemotherapy at the time. And so the first time I actually saw the whole thing and heard the score for the first time live was the opening night. I couldn't even go to the dress rehearsal. I wasn't well enough to go to the dress rehearsal. And so I don't know how I got there, but I got there for the opening night. And I saw it through a veil of tears. It took me 2 or 3 times to see it before I could sit there without weeping, because it meant so much to me, that piece. So yeah,
That's great.
It's not just a ballet to me. It was my life coming back together and seeing it, because I designed it pre-pandemic. We were meant to do it that in 2020. I think no, 21. Was it 19? No, I get so confused. We've lost 3 years, haven't we?
I think we went in 2020.
Yeah, that was 2020. I had to leave New York. I was doing another show on Broadway, about to take a show on Broadway when Broadway shut down, March 2020. That's right. But we were originally meant to do it in London, and then so I was looking at something that was designed about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was extraordinary in itself, because you have to get the ballet designs in very, very early, especially a big 3-act ballet, because they're huge. They're bigger than most musicals, because you're working with a corps de ballet who might have 3 or 4 different changes. There's hundreds of costumes.
Yeah.
So I did about 250 drawings, I think. So it was my life for a long, long time. And then suddenly it all went on hold. Then I came back and I got ill, and then I saw it again and it blew my socks off. Yeah.
Wow. To wrap up, is there something you're working on, or you're
At the moment?
Yes.
No, I've been unable to do any work. So I'm coming back to stuff now, and I'm going to do a little play here in London in the fall. And a great friend of mine is doing a one-woman show, so I'll do something for her. And then Chris wants to do a couple of other ballets with me. So maybe when I see him in New York, although he's here right now, so I'm seeing him on. Actually, I'm seeing him on Friday night, tomorrow night. But I'm going to throw a ballet tomorrow night because they're reviving something I did there about 20 years ago, and it's on a triple bill with one of Chris's ballets. So I'll see him tomorrow, and because he's also here auditioning for MJ, the Michael Jackson musical, so which he brings here next year. So yeah, hopefully we'll start on another one. I can't wait.
Yes. Well, I can't wait to see more. I love that ballet. It was extraordinary, and the costumes. I mean,
Are you coming to New York to see it again?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to see it in New York? You'll see it again?
I'm not in New York. I'm in LA.
Yeah, you're in LA. I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unless I get to visit Inma.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on this project and your future projects to come. I'm sure you have many more
Thank you
to work
very
on.
much.
You're welcome. Likewise. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye.